The Saxons were a group of people originally from the German region of Saxony. The Saxons would eventually make their way to Britain around 410 CE and would begin to invade the Roman Britain, which had been told by the emperor of the time, Heronius, that Rome could not send any reinforcements to Britain. While the remaining Romans defended themselves from invaders, the invaders were able to make their own kingdoms. By 500 CE, most of the invaders had settled into Britain, with the Saxons settling in an area east of a line from Humber and the Isle of Wight. However, the process by which the Saxons settled in Britain was largely unknown, with only one account from a British monk by the name of Gildas, who viewed the Saxons as a punishment from God. Bede, an English monk and historian, was a major source for information on Britain in the late 6th century to the early 8th century. Bede writes that there were Saxon kingdoms in Kent known as Sussex, containing South Saxons, Wessex, containing West Saxons, and Essex, containing East Saxons.
In the 8th century, the people of Britain began referring to the Saxons in Britain as Anglo-Saxons, to differentiate them from the Saxons still in Germany. By this point in time, the Anglo-Saxons had begun to refer to themselves as Angli or English. Saxons would continue to keep control over Britain until the invasions of the Franks in 1066 CE, which would oust them from power in Britain.
When barbarians started to attack the Roman Empire, Rome called back all troops to defend mainland around 410 CE, thus leaving Britain unprotected and vulnerable to attacks. The first to hear about this were the Picts, a confederation of multiple tribes in northern Scotland. At this point, Britain had to form their own government and military, everything that the Romans used to provide for them. Ironically, Britain hired Saxon barbarians to fight the Pict barbarians. Britain was able to push the Picts back up north with their army led by Vortigern. Lord Vortigern kept recruiting these skilled Saxon barbarians because they were trained and hired by Rome in the past. Eventually, Britain grew to the point where there was not enough food or money to give to both the people and barbarians. Most people in Roman Britain were Christians, unlike the Anglo-Saxons who were not. They worshipped lots of gods and goddesses like those of the Celts. The people there didn't like the barbarians too much and often described them as animal-like. Vortigern, not being able to provide the needs, breaks the contract, which leads to a revolt. The Saxon barbarian leaders Hengist and Horsa led a massive attack on Kent in 455 CE. The first Anglo-Saxons raided the shores of South and East England in the 4th century CE. They were later beat back by the Romans. In the beginning of the 5th century, the Romans left Britain since they didn't know how to defend themselves. It wasn't until the second time the Saxons invaded Britain they were successful.
The Saxons are an integral part of not only the history and culture of the nation of Britain, but of the Western world as well. The Saxons are partially responsible for the development of the English language, along with the Franks. The Saxons also left valuable examples of the culture at this time through surviving poetry and writings, such as the story of Beowulf and the Battle of Maldon. These contributions, although how small they may seem, are invaluable not only to the development of the Western world, but the understanding of the time period as well.